So, Peter Sanderson, welcome to our new studio.
Thank you.
Now, the last couple of days, I've been reading some incredible words of yours about a hummingbird, Horus. Incredible character. I love the book. Just some beautiful messages and some amazing characters. And I just read it and I just didn't want it to finish. And I felt so emotional. And it was just so many messages there that seem very pertinent to what's going on in the world today. So I'm just going to shut up. Just over to you. Just tell us something about it.
Yeah, so it's called The Bird of Destiny. It's about a little hummingbird called Horus. I've always loved hummingbirds. And I think Horus probably...
Horus, not Horace.
Whatever you want.
I've called him Horus there. I feel as though I've insulted the little fella.
Oh, no, not at all. No, he's not the kind of guy to get too offended. But he's been through a tough time. Not only are his species now in serious danger of being extinct, his dad's gone missing in the search for food, and he's also getting bullied at jungle school. So he's having a lot of problems. He's only a young hummingbird, and he doesn't really know how to deal with them. And then he overhears a conversation between a jaguar and a snake, as you do.
Of course.
And the conversation is about a bird of destiny. And this bird of destiny is essentially going to solve all Horus's problems. He can listen to the wind, he's mystical, he's magical, and he could essentially save the world in Horus's eyes. And after being through these moments of crisis, which we all go through as youngsters, Horus finally has some hope. That's all he's looking for. And he's the kind of guy, a bit like me when I was a kid. I think I was always looking for the positive. When things were going against me and I felt like I was swimming against the tide, I just wanted one little glimmer of hope, and if I got that, then everything could be okay. And there he begins this incredible journey where he's searching for this bird of destiny, and he's searching for his dad, his species to be saved, and an answer to why people are bullying him and why he's struggling through life. And I didn't really know as I was writing it where the journey would go, but I knew that Horus was the kind of bird that would never give it up. And his dad, perhaps his dad's legacy was not only the hope, but also telling him about these amazing birds that existed all around the world. So he meets these incredible characters along the way. His dad always says, when things are going badly, pretend you're an albatross. They're the biggest birds with the biggest wingspan on the planet, and he goes to the albatross. He meets the condor, which, as a kid, I never forget seeing these eagles flying high as we were on the motorways in France and in the countryside. And my dad always said, check these guys out, look at them. And you just saw them circling. They have that incredible perspective on the earth that we never get. And of course, owls. I mean, what kids' book wouldn't be a kids' book without an owl in it, a wise old owl? So, yeah, Horus goes on this incredible journey. He meets some amazing characters, and yeah, I mean, I'm not going to give away what happens, but essentially, what he learns is his species are dying because of climate change.
And that's for real, isn't it?
This is a real story. I mean, it's a fiction book, but it's all based on fact. And the truth is that Horus, who's a rufous hummingbird, his species will probably be extinct within 10 years, 15 years, unless something drastic happens. And that's a combination of trees being chopped down. It's a combination of the changing climate, the changing sea temperature, and also the fact that the nectar that he drinks, his food, is no longer available in the seasons when he's in certain places. So the migrations are all out of sync. And these birds are really struggling. And half of the money that I raise from this book will be donated to a proceed which is going to help the hummingbirds. And
wow.
For me, it's been one of the biggest draws. I mean, yeah, it's my first big book, but I see it as a message, really. They call it cli-fi. I spoke to Waterstones the other day. They call it cli-fi as opposed to sci-fi, climate change fiction. And parents and kids are looking for these stories of hope and for education amid imagination. And I just hope that if if we can help the hummingbirds, we can help people like birds like Horus, and we can raise awareness, then I'd like to think that this book has done its job.
So where did I'm sensing there's a little bit of Horus in you? Would that be? I'm not suggesting you got a feathered body.
In my pocket, yeah.
So is there a bit of Horus in you? Is that fair to say?
Definitely, yeah. I think every writer is basically either venting their spleen from their childhood, or at least finding a good part of themselves that they can share with the public. And I'm always a positive person. I like to, maybe I think some people might find that annoying, but I always like to cling on to hope, and I really believe that for every human being, nothing is impossible. And Horus essentially is a 4-centimetre hummingbird, the smallest bird on the planet. And yet he, in the journey, flies halfway across the world, and that's pretty impressive. And there's a little bit of me in it, because I think I've travelled a lot. I've always tried to find the opportunity in the problem, and I've always believed that nothing is too big to try and conquer, or to triumph against. And whether that comes with being a Preston North End fan, or growing up in Preston, I don't know, but I think I had some tough times at school, just like Horus did, and I think the human species are in jeopardy, but maybe not to quite the same extent for hummingbirds. But I think we have a role as human beings to really amplify the truth about climate change and the problems. And so I wanted to be a journalist, and so it's my role really to not only talk about sport or whatever I've been working in journalism as, but also the big stories, the big messages that human beings have to understand about this earth, because in 7 generations it'll be a very different earth unless we start moving now. And people like Greta Thunberg are really incredibly inspiring people, and if I could just be 0.001% of what she's done, and she's only 15 or something, then I feel like at least I've done something, because so far I feel like I've kind of worked in the toy department of life.
So I think the big thing for me, as well as just totally enjoying your story, and part of your message is highlighting the desperation and the horrible situation that the planet Earth is in right now. I think that the big message for me that was jumping off every word that you wrote was this idea that despite the misery and the seemingly desperate state of the planet currently, there's always hope, and this idea that there's always something that we can do. And I think that was a massive thing for me, that Horus just went through some really challenging times, and he just kept going and going and going. That was like a big thing for me. Just seeing your little feathered friend just battling on through some unbelievable situations.
Yeah, well, I don't think age or size matter, and I think that's one of the things he learns on his journey. Because actually, we are our bodies, we are our souls, but I think truly there's no reason, apart from being told when you're a kid that you can't do something by some teacher or parent, to stop us actually going and trying crazy things. I mean, like Greta Thunberg is an incredible example of that. She is someone who, she's a schoolgirl, but yet she's talking at the same level as politicians. She's actually talking more sense. And I think Horus is the same. He realizes that with his dad disappearing, and meeting a number of characters who he always believed were the key characters who could influence, like saving the birds, whatever. But he realizes that none of them are actually doing anything. They can give him good advice, but they go back to their families, or they go back to their little world, or stick their head in the sand. And Horus says, well, I think it's the owl who actually says to him, look, Horus, everyone else is sticking their head in the sand here. Someone needs to do something. And he realizes that that it's him. That he has to go and do something, and so he goes on this incredible mission to find the bird of destiny. And I mean, I'm not going to give away the story, but he offers us all a ray of hope that we can achieve what we're trying to do. And it isn't necessarily exactly as we think it might unfold, but still it's possible to do something, and sometimes it's even bigger than you imagine.
Now, I've got to be honest, I was reading that book and I cried twice. I have to be honest. Now, I know I've got a history of crying in a lot of Disney movies. I really do.
Yeah.
Frozen 1, Frozen and Frozen 2 as well. I've cried them all. It doesn't take a lot. But I went through a lot of emotion with this story. Is there... Now, I know we don't want any... you don't want to give the game away with telling us what happens at the end, but is there one particular scene that, when you were writing, that really just grabbed your heart and twisted you a little bit and just made you think, wow, this is strong for me?
Well, Horus is a dreamer. I mean, I actually the big scene which made I even cried as I wrote it, which is towards the end. I'm not going to give that one away, but there was also one moment close to the beginning where Horus is a dreamer, and I was always criticised throughout my life for being, not by everyone, but by some people, think that dreamers aren't realistic. Dreamers are people who live with their heads in the clouds. But actually, dreamers are people who see the big picture. That's the way I see it. And yeah, Horus keeps having this recurring dream where he's this powerful bird that can fly to every corner of the world, that he is on some incredible mission to try and save humanity or to save bird kind. And in this dream, he keeps seeing this silver raven. There's a pink lake in the dream. At the end of every dream, he looks in it and he sees this silver raven, and this silver raven is trying to give him this feather.
The silver ravens are quite common in Preston, is that right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
The silver raven was originally a unicorn. Spoiler alert, but it was my wife who convinced me to take it out and to put a silver raven in there, because she said you need to have a unique, powerful. She didn't decide on the silver raven. But she said it has to be something unique and different. And so Horus's dream is seeing this silver raven in a lake that isn't from Preston. And at the end of each dream, he reaches out to get the feather because the silver raven's offering this feather, and he just can never quite touch it. But there's obviously a moment in the book when Horus does get to connect with that feather. And
wow, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the reasons I won't explain because it's important to the story, but it's almost like he's finally achieved the thing he's always been dreaming of achieving, and I think it represents something in every reader's life, whether it's something that they've always hoped and dreamed of, but it's like your book that you wrote. When you finally get to finish that book, it's really quite a momentous goal. It's like a destination point, which you've always dreamed of, and I think for Horus that was exactly that. And as I wrote the book, I felt it. He was there. It was in my heart. It was a big smile followed by quite a lot of emotion.
Have you ever seen a hummingbird?
I have, yeah. Actually, I mean, I wrote this book I started it on a plane from Los Angeles to Geneva. It's a long journey. I think it was an 18-hour journey via Amsterdam, and I wrote the first draft of it on that journey.
You were sitting next to a hummingbird.
I wasn't, but I'd just been in America, and obviously hummingbirds are native to the Americas, and I got to see 2 or 3 hummingbirds, and for me they represent a lot. They represent something that we struggle to achieve as human beings, because they have stillness in flight. And they get the nectar, the sweet nectar, and so they really know how to find that stillness and to find the sweetest spot or the most beautiful thing in our lives. So for me, they represent creativity, stillness, and something incredibly beautiful. Because in Europe we don't have hummingbirds; we have the hummingbird moth. But I think it'd be such a shame if yeah, in 15, 20 years' time, we're talking about hummingbirds like dinosaurs or that will build platypuses. You know, they've got a place in our world because there's something different and special. And hopefully this book will help in some way to saving them.
All right, Pete. Well, I look forward to reading about the re-emergence and the explosion population to the hummingbird. Thank you to your beautiful words.
It's a pleasure.
I mean, just what's your next project? You got any other animals lined up? Like from a climate point of view, is there?
Yeah, well, I mean, the idea of this, it's potential to have a second bird of destiny. The story's in my head, but actually, there's a couple of animals which I'd like to really, or mammals that I'd like to, going from the smallest bird in the world to the biggest mammal in the world. And the blue whale is probably the next project because, again, they're really under threat, and they are biggest creature on the planet. They're bigger than most of the dinosaurs were, and I think, whales are seriously in danger of disappearing, and I think it would be an incredible shame. Plus, they've got something really special about them. They sing to each other from 5,000 miles away. So I think the next book you'll find will be that, and lots of other ones in my head as well. I'm a big fan of the scarlet macaw. And these are two incredible birds which fall in love with each other, and when one of them dies, their partner dies of heartbreak, literally within an hour of their partner dying. So I think there's some stories there, but now we'll focus on hummingbirds and we'll see where that one goes. Well, one book at a time, Mark.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for coming in to
Ashington Studios
to open up your thoughts on all of this, fella.
Thank you, and I hope it didn't sound too serious. I mean, the idea here is that, I think a book represents an opportunity for us all to be liberated. I think, for me, the biggest thing about this book has been having worked at lots of big companies in very serious positions with lots of rules. Writing a book really has represented an opportunity for me to express my freedom and have the freedom to express myself. And I think everyone has got a book in them, and probably everyone's got more than one book in them. And so I'd love